Welcome to KMUZ Theatre Talk. I'm Ed Shopes. Co-host Ann McBride and I are here the first and third Fridays of every month to bring you all the news and interviews about what's happening in the Mid-Willamette Valley theater world.
On today's program, Ed and I talk with director Geri of the Pentacle Theater's FOOTLOOSE, opening October 11th, and actors Jeff Witt and Hunter Mote, who play two of the leading roles.
In our second segment, we'll talk with co-producer and choreographer Nate Pierce and vocal director Stacia about Evil Dead the Musical, sponsored by the Mid-Valley Theater Network, and that one opens at Chemeketa Community College October 24th. But first, let's get started with the KMUZ Theatre Talk calendar. Ann?
Albany Civic Theater at albanycivic.org, now through October 12th. At Albany Civic Theater is a special event production of Evil Dead the Musical. Check out our KMUZ Theatre Talk podcast for our interview with director Johanna Spencer and two actors from the show. Auditions for the comedy classic Charlie's Aunt happen at ACT October 21st through 23rd. It's directed by Shauna Kiefuk and Stephanie Schwartz, and the show runs January 10th through 25th.
Bridgetown Conservatory Salem is on Facebook and at bridgetownconservatory.org. Bridgetown Conservatory offers triple threat training from musical theater professionals. Listen to our KMUZ Theatre Talk podcast to hear Rick Lewis, executive director, tell us all about Bridgetown's classes that are now offered at their new location in downtown Salem. And those classes aim to sharpen the skills you need to successfully audition for college theater programs and professional and amateur productions.
Brush Creek Playhouse at brushcreekplayhouse.com. The Things My Mother Taught Me, a comedy of love, laughs, worry, and wisdom, plays through October 13th at Brush Creek. See their Facebook page and website for show information. And auditions for A Nice Family Christmas are October 23rd and 24th at Brush Creek. The show runs November 14th through 24th. See the Brush Creek Playhouse Facebook page or website for details.
The Elsinore Theater is at elsinoretheater.com. And for information about local events and touring shows on stage at the Elsinore, go to their website and Facebook page.
Gallery Theater at gallerytheater.org. The darkly comic rock fable Fly By Night runs October 11th through November 3rd at Gallery Theater. It's a sweeping ode to young love set against the backdrop of the Northeast blackout of 1965 and is directed by Seth Rennie with musical direction by Christy Smith. You can learn more about the show on our interview with Seth on our KMUZ Theatre Talk podcast. Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, the musical about the flying car, runs November 22nd through December 15th at Gallery Theater. It's directed by Katrina Godders. And Gallery Theater has announced their 2025 season. They're starting with Fiddler on the Roof, February 7th through March 2nd. Then The Cottage, March 14th through 30th. Roald Dahl's Willy Wonka, April 25th through May 18th. The Curious Savage, July 18th through August 3rd. Xanadu, August 29th through September 21st. Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, October 10th through 26th. And The Best Christmas Pageant Ever, November 26th through December 14th.
Kaiser Homegrown Theater is at kaiserhomegrowntheater.org and also on Facebook. The Thanksgiving play takes the stage at Kaiser Homegrown Theater November 1st through 17th. In this wickedly funny satire by Larissa Fasthorse, good intentions collide with irrational assumptions as a group of terminally woke teachers scramble to create a pageant that somehow manages to celebrate both Turkey Day and Native American Heritage Month. It's directed at Kaiser Homegrown Theater by Mia Apodaca And you can hear our talk with Mia on our July 5th KMUZ Theatre Talk podcast. Kaiser Homegrown has also announced its 2025 season. The shows are Songs for a New World by Jason Robert Brown, directed by Shailene Holbrook, Drinking Habits by Tom Smith, directed by Jeff Minden, Waiting for Godot by Dave Hansen, directed by Linda Baker, and The Lion in Winter by James Goldman, also directed by Linda Baker. Go to KaiserHomegrownTheater.org for show dates and tickets.
The Majestic Theater is on Facebook and at majestic.org. Little Shop of Horrors will take to the Majestic Theater stage October 25th through November 3rd. It's directed by Ruth Manziger.
For the Mid-Valley Theater Network, Evil Dead the Musical runs October 24th through November 3rd on the Chemeketa Community College stage with a special show on Halloween. Choreographer Nate Pierce and vocal director Stacia Purdy join us later in today's program to tell us more about the show. This production of Evil Dead the Musical will benefit the Mid-Valley Theater Network and its member theaters. Check out the Do the Necronomicon Salem Facebook page and DoTheNecronomicon.com website for more information. And tonight there will be a special karaoke fundraiser at 7:30 p.m. in the Infinity Room in downtown Salem to support Evil Dead the Musical. See the DoTheNecronomicon.com website for more information and tickets.
Pentacle Theater at PentacleTheater.org. Footloose the Musical runs October 11th through November 2nd at Pentacle Theater. Stay tuned to learn more about Footloose in today's interview with director Geri and actors Jeff Witt and Hunter Moat. From 3 to 5 p.m. October 5th in the Pentacle Theater lobby, you can join in the fun for a Fall Harvest Soup Wars fundraiser and a Footloose line dance lesson. See the Pentacle Theater website and Facebook page for details. And Joe Dodge's acting workshop for actors 18 and older fall session is underway now at Pentacle Theater's rehearsal studio in downtown Salem. To sign up for Joe's acting workshop, go to tickets.pentacletheater.org or see the Pentacle Theater Facebook page.
The Salem Playhouse is at thesalemplayhouse.com, and they offer acting classes for both kids and adults too. To sign up, go to thesalemplayhouse.com and click on the Classes tab.
Theater 33 at Willamette University at theater33.org and on Facebook will bring back their popular live performance of a radio play, A Christmas Carol, and more to follow.
Corbin University is at corbin.edu/theater-arts. Fools by Neil Simon, directed by Tamara McGinnis, will play at Corbin University November 14th through 24th. We'll have an interview about that show with Tamara on a future KMUZ Theatre Talk program.
Western Oregon University at wou.edu/theater. WOU Theater 24-25 season includes The Other Shore by Gao Shinji An and directed by Michael Phillips, runs November 14th through 23rd at WOU Theater. Nora, A Doll's House by Steph Smith and directed by Kendra Steenerson, plays February 26th through March 8th. And closing the WOU Theater season next spring will be Tiny Beautiful Things by Cheryl Strayed and Nina Vardalos, directed by Risa Fleming. Plays May 28th through 31st.
Willamette University Theater is at wutheater.com, and their 2024-25 season of plays includes November 1st through 17th. You can see Urinetown the Musical, a hilarious satire set in a city that bans private toilets during a 20-year drought. February 14th through 23rd, Willamette presents Far Away, an hour-long futuristic nightmare in 3 short scenes that envisions a world where the promise of violence broods and nothing is to be trusted. And closing the Willamette Theater season, April 11th through 26th, is Bloom Bloom Pow, the climate doom comedy inspired by 1950s monster movies and the real-life 2014 crisis in Toledo, Ohio, when the tap water became deadly to use. Get more information and reserve your season tickets at wutheater.com.
Dallas High School at dhstheater.org and on Facebook at Dallas High School Thespians and Theater. They are doing Clue the weekend of October 30th. See their Facebook page for show and ticket information.
North Salem High School is on Facebook at NSHS Theater. Ash Girl opens at North Salem High October 10th. And that wraps up today's KMUZ Theatre Talk calendar for plays around the Mid-Willamette Valley. Today's first guests are director Geri Greeno and actors Jeff Witt and Hunter Moat from Footloose, the musical, opening October 11th at Pentacle Theater. Welcome to KMUZ Theatre Talk, everyone.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Always happy to be here with Ann and Ed.
Geri, Footloose is an iconic movie. Everybody is within 6 degrees of separation with Kevin Bacon. Footloose is also a really entertaining musical. What brought you to this show and producing it at Pentacle Theater?
So Footloose, like you said, it's an iconic movie, and it opened actually 40 years ago this year in
Wow.
February.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I know, I can't believe it's that old. And it just kind of happens to coincide with my start in theater. It was right around the time that I was in my first show. And so to me, Footloose, when I was a kid, was a great show about song and dance, right? There's great music, iconic music that we do use in the musical. But I loved all the dancing. As a dancer, growing up as a dancer, loved the dancing in that show. And so I thought, with the talent that we have at Pentacle and our surrounding community, we could put on a pretty good production of it. So that was one reason. But the other one is that as you kind of dig into the story, there's nothing wrong with fluffy musicals. I've directed some. They're fantastic. But this show has a really great story that I thought would be relevant to our time in this day and age. And so having an opportunity to be able to have something for folks who like to sing and watch the dancing and tap along with memorable songs, but also have something there that has heart and passion and love and loss and really a show that's about forgiveness. I talked about that a lot with the cast. And so having a show where I could kind of balance both sides of my personality, the dancing and the singing and the acting, it really drew me. And so that was one of the big reasons why I wanted to put it on at Pentacle.
The story behind Footloose is really interesting to me. City boy moves to a small town and suddenly realizes that there are some limitations to the social structure that he's not used to. Give us a little synopsis of the show, Geri.
Ren, who's played by Hunter, comes to us from Chicago to a small town called Beaumont. And in this town, they have outlawed pretty much everything, including dancing. And when you put it like that, it sort of makes it sound like, it's a very overly strict town. And it's not so much that they're trying to be overly strict. Really, the community and particularly Reverend Moore, played by Jeff, is trying to protect the community from having tragedy strike them again. And so by putting all these rules and these confines around the kids, no singing, no dancing, no alcohol, no rock and roll, none of this. He's not a bad guy. He's just trying to do what he thinks is best to protect his daughter and the rest of the community. And when Ren comes in and kind of upends that, we have a really great conflict between the kids who want to be able to express themselves through dance and the adults who don't want that. They want them to be protected and safe and well cared for. And eventually, you get to the scene where Ren and Shaw have a heart-to-heart conversation, and they get to talk as people, not just the talking points they've both created. They really get to talk from the heart. And, if you've seen the movie, you know that it gets overturned and there's a big dance at the end, which is the iconic Footloose dance scene, which I have to say our cast really blows out of the theater. They're going to blow the roof off the theater, figuratively.
You have a huge cast. There's like 30 people in this show.
There are. We have a cast of 29. We have some folks that have never done a show before. They've never sung, they've never danced, they've never acted, and they're just fantastic. To folks like Jeff, who've been doing this for, the majority of his life. And so we have that wide range of talent, lots of new folks to Pentacle, people who've only done one or two shows at Pentacle, and then some of us who've been around for a number of years. So you've got a great mix of people who are coming together to put this show on. Some of the younger actors coming back haven't been at Pentacle since they were children, and so getting to see them more grown up and play these parts is just really fantastic. And a couple of the roles are played by former students of Jeff Witt, and they are fantastic.
Oh, okay. I just want to ask Jeff, what brought you to this particular? You haven't been doing much in the way of shows lately.
No, I did the prom earlier this year, which was the first show in about 4 years.
Wow.
Footloose has a special place in my heart. I've been to New York many times and seen many Broadway shows, and I will tell you, this is the one and only show that I went and saw a matinee performance of it. And I came out of the theater and I went and bought a ticket to see it again that night when I was in New York.
Wow.
Because I was just floored by it. I love the music. I've always loved the music. And so when I saw that it was put on the season, I was like, I have to be a part of that. I don't care how, but I want to be a part of it. So I get the honor of playing Reverend Moore, as well as I'm also the vocal director for the show.
I think Reverend Moore is a really interesting character, because he's the only one in the musical who actually changes a little bit.
Yeah, it's so funny because I've had several people say, "Oh, you're playing the villain. I've never seen you play the villain before." And my standard response is, "He's not a villain." It's been a challenging role, and Geri, and actually Hunter will tell you, on multiple occasions, I find myself crying in the middle of these scenes because there is a character arc that needs to happen with Reverend Moore. And there is that change that needs to happen. And it's not until Ren really sits him down and says, hey, you need to really think about what your actions are doing. And it just hits him like a ton of bricks. And he realizes he needs to do something before he loses his entire family and his community and his congregation.
Wow.
Like Geri was saying, this is not like one of your fluffy musicals. There's a lot of heart and depth to it.
And you provide most of the depth.
Yeah, I think that character and that family does a lot of that. I think Vi is kind of an instigator for that as well, his wife. It's been a challenge, but fun.
And Hunter, you have to be a triple threat.
Yes, absolutely. It is. The vocal range is insane throughout this entire musical, I would say, from these kind of just normal chest tone to immediately like going into falsetto. Vocally, dancing is amazing, but it is also a lot of energy.
Yes.
So, of course, it's so fun getting to be part of this cast in Footloose and just being able to engage with, once again, people from the previous show, The Prom, previously this year, and seeing them again and being able to interact with them, and as well as welcoming all the new people on board. And it's just an absolute blast being part of this cast and crew. And I'm super excited to show this to the city of Salem.
Now, Hunter, how old are you?
I am 19 years old.
Wow. So you're pretty close to the age of the character.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the show, I think he was either 18 or 19, but yeah, it's pretty close. And I've only been doing theater for a little longer than a year. So I was pretty late to the game. I started my senior year of high school playing Hans from Frozen Junior, and that was fun. It was a really fun experience. And about 6 months later, I heard that Pentacle was doing The Prom, and all my friends were talking about how they were going to audition for this show. And I was like, okay, I'm going to take a shot. I'm going to do this as well. Turns out none of my friends actually showed up to that audition. 0 of them were there. And so I was left like, okay, well, I'm already here. Let's do it. And ever since then, I fell in love with Pentacle, and here I am in Footloose.
And you haven't had a lot of training then.
Oh, no. The most training I have along the triple threat lineup is voice, and I've been singing since I've been in 4th grade. But other than that, nothing acting or dancing wise.
And you previously didn't sing and dance at the same time.
No, not at all. Mostly just standing and singing for, choir groups and stuff. So
Yes.
it's definitely a change of pace.
Yes.
Well, you impressed Geri, and that's the important part. Geri, quick question for you. You said you had 29 people in your cast. What is the mix of your cast when it comes to experienced people and new people? And what is your aim to bring to the audience with such a large cast ensemble? It seems to me that it's a real challenge having 29 different actors on the stage at the same time, for one, but each one has a different level of experience. How do you work with that?
I think part of it is I got really, really lucky at auditions. We had the dance audition first. We had it separately because when people audition, the one thing that always seems to freak them out is the dance audition. And I thought, well, why not separate it out, take some of the pressure off, make it more fun for folks to dance. And when we did the first dance audition, I was blown away by the talent that came out. There were so many people, and you don't have to be someone who's been studying dance since they were 3 years old to be a dancer. I call it my Ratatouille motto, where they always said anyone can cook. I think anyone can dance. Maybe not everyone can dance everything, but I believe that. And if I believe that, it seems like other people start to believe that of themselves. We have one actress who's playing Ren's aunt, who's never been on stage before. They've never sung, they've never danced, they haven't acted, none of that. But they have this natural gift where if you watch them, you would never be able to tell. We have some really talented core dancers that auditioned that we've put in key places. And so that really helps kind of drive others to rise to that level. And the people playing kids in the show absolutely rise to that challenge, especially Hunter with all of the dancing he has to do. He's rising to that challenge. One of the things in researching this show that the author really talks about is that when you look at the show, it's not that the characters can't dance, they don't dance. And so they're not allowed to dance. And so trying to find ways in all of the songs up until the very end to have movement that isn't really dancing, I think also helps a bit to drive the story in a way so that you get a really big payoff when they all burst into this big dance at the start of Act 2 when they're at a barbecue, and then at the end of the show when everyone comes on. They definitely fill the stage.
Oh, wow.
There is not a open space on that floor when everyone is dancing. But it feels like it's just enough. We open Act 2 in a country bar, and we actually have almost the entire cast on stage for that, playing alternate versions of themselves in like in a different time and space. This is what life would be like in Beaumont. But then you get that feeling of being in a crowded country bar. You're able to evoke that, where if we only had 5 or 6 people, it wouldn't give you that, everybody having a good time on a Friday night feeling that you get. At least that's what happened when I was, in my 20s and went to country bars. And so the great thing about having a cast this size means we have a very small crew backstage, and a lot of the cast are doubling as crew, moving set pieces on and off. And unlike other shows, our stage crew won't be dressed in black. They'll be dressed the same as everybody else in town, so that you can't really tell who's who. But since we're not hiding the scene changes, everyone knows they have to happen. So we're going to do them in character as part of the show. And so that kind of helps things too. There are a lot of scenes, so it's like fitting a puzzle together. And that's what we've been doing for the last week, is fitting that puzzle together of where do the set pieces stand? Where do the people stand? Where are people going to change costume? It's all a puzzle. And I have to say, the actors in the show, the crew backstage, I can't wait to add our band, because we do have a live band on stage.
Wow.
Yeah, putting all of those pieces together, it's the puzzle is coming together beautifully.
I can't wait.
Well, Geri, it sounds like you've really got it all together. I want to loop back to Jeff for a second. Jeff, you talked about the story arc of your character, Reverend Shaw Moore is a really interesting guy. What is your favorite part of playing the Reverend Moore?
Reverend Shaw in the beginning of the show is very unlike me. And that's been interesting. I mean, he's yelling at his wife, he's yelling at his daughter, he ends up slapping his, or starts to slap his daughter. You know, that's just something that's not in my character at all. So that's been interesting to explore that. But I really think my favorite part of that show is the scene with Hunter or Ren, when Ren comes in and just basically lets him have it. I mean, he doesn't let him have it. He does it in the nicest way possible, but it's just been, I can't wait for you guys to see Hunter in this role. I don't know if there is anyone else in this town that could play this role as well as he does. And
Wow.
no joke, between he and Molly, who plays Ariel, I mean, two of the most phenomenally talented people I've met. And I can't wait for Salem to really see them shine in these roles. They've been in, you know, they were in the prom, and Molly was Alyssa in the prom and had kind of a larger role. And Hunter had the boyfriend role in the prom as well. But really, for them to get to step out and show you what they can do, they're amazing together. But that scene with Hunter, when I have to like dig deep and realize that this 18-year-old, 19-year-old is right, you know, and I've been wrong, and really like showing that. And then not more than 2 minutes later, having to explain how I've been wrong to my congregation for the past 5 years. It's really quite an emotional time for me on stage and for that character. So I really enjoy doing that and trying to portray that.
Hunter, what is that moment like for you on the opposite side?
It is also my favorite part of the entire show. It's a moment where kind of all this frustration and all this tension of everyone in town, including Ren, Reverend Moore, all these characters, there's just this tension that builds up over time within the show. And it's a moment where it kind of all just explodes. And it's absolutely it's where Ren basically starts explaining himself, and it's a very like open scene between Reverend and Ren. And it's a moment of realization where this character, or both of them, I would say, realize it's okay not to be okay. It's something that is I can relate to personally, and overall just is my favorite part of the show.
Wow. This will be interesting for an audience to participate in.
Absolutely. And I try very hard in staging everything to make sure that everyone in the audience gets to see all of these important moments, because we want to take them on a journey, you know, and we have, I have to echo Jeff, Hunter is amazing. And Ariel, Molly, who's playing Ariel, the love interest, the daughter of the Reverend, she's amazing. And we have amazing supporting cast that add so much humor and so much life, and it's infectious into the rest of the cast, down into the ensemble roles. Everybody's all in for the whole show, and I think if we're all in, the audience will be in it with us. But that last scene, to me, is the whole heart and message of the show, which is we have to sit down face to face and talk to people and understand people, and not make just snap judgments about folks. Everyone has things that they've gone through, and by talking about it and meeting people where they are, even if you can't forget what happened, you can forgive. And only with forgiveness are you truly free from everything that's bringing you down. And that, I think, is the full message of the show. And that last scene right before the finale, it's such a moving moment that I think our audiences will be really surprised that it's there.
What do you hope the audience is going to take away from the show at the end?
I hope that they can take a moment and think of things maybe in their life that they might need to, again, not forget, but forgive and let go, because then we can all cut footloose. You know, I want people to come away singing the songs, having had a really good time, but also that they're things that maybe they need to think about, how they talk to other people, how we react to other people, you know, trying to be more understanding and less rigid, you know, we're all trying to do our best in this world and make our way in this world. But if we could do it together through communication and openness, we can achieve something better.
The show, folks, is Footloose, the musical. It plays at Pentacle Theater October 11th through November 2nd. It is about 74% sold out right now as we talk, about a week before broadcast. So get yourself to pentacletheater.org to get your tickets for this show, because it's going to sell out, and it's going to sell out fast. Make sure that you check out our KMUZ Theatre Talk Facebook page for information, and the Pentacle Theater Facebook page for information about this show. And again, pentacletheater.org is where you can get your tickets. Thank you so much, Director Geri Greeno and actors Jeff Witt and Hunter Moat, for joining us here to tell us about Footloose, the musical at Pentacle Theater. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Thank
Yeah, thank you.
Joining us next are co-producer and choreographer Nate Pierce and vocal director Stacia Purdy from Evil Dead the Musical, running October 24th through November 3rd at the Chemeketa Community College stage. Welcome to KMUZ Theatre Talk, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, guys, this is a benefit for the Mid-Valley Theater Network. Tell us a little bit about the origin of the show, Nate, and your involvement with it and how you got started.
So this show started back in 2006, and it was originally, I think, done in Toronto. The first time I ever got to see it was in New York in New World Stages. So I was very familiar with the show before Jeremy, who's the other co-producer, came and spoke to me about it. We used to have a bunch of shows that we did as a collaboration in the Mid-Valley Theater Network pre-COVID. We had a discussion that was like, why isn't that still happening? And he was like, I'd really love to bring that back, and I'd really love to, reunite the Mid-Valley Theater Network and, show them, like, that as a collective group, what we can all do to support ourselves and survive as a theater industry in our local community. So I was like, well, yeah, that would be a great idea. And Jeremy's like, here's a crazy thought. What happens if we produce a show for them and we handle all the, the bare bones of it, and then it supports all the theaters, and all the theaters can collaborate and support it and be involved. And I was like, that sounds great. And he was like, and you could be the choreographer. And I was like, oh, well, I got to think about that. I got to see about how much time I got. And then it just slowly unfolded more and more and more. And he was like, how about Evil Dead the Musical? He said, I feel like that's something that hasn't really been done in the Salem area. Funny enough, Albany also was doing Evil Dead the Musical, so they've been able to also support us. They're going to support us with that as well, and we've been working with them. It's a nice combination. So there's been a really collaborative experience for all the different theaters involved, pretty much the whole Willamette Valley area.
And Stacia, how'd you get involved with this project?
I have known Jeremy and Andy for quite a while. I do music directing for shows in the Salem-Keizer area for a while now. And so our social circles and our professional lives have been colliding for quite some time. And so last year, when Jeremy introduced the idea to me of doing the show, I was like, well, yes, I have to do that because it's horror, it's scary, it's spooky, it's music, it's everything that's right up my alley. And so last year when he pitched the idea to me, I was like, yes, I will definitely do it. And so it's been a joy to be able to kind of collaborate with them again, because we've done things a little bit in the past, but this is like our first big show, and it's been really, really exciting to do so far.
Just to remind our listeners, Jeremy and Andy that we're talking about is Jeremy Clubb and Andy Bean,
Yes.
who are co-directing this show. And there's an interview Ann and I had with them on our KMUZ Theatre Talk podcast.
Could one of you give a brief synopsis of the plot?
So if you're familiar with the Evil Dead movie franchise, the musical follows about the first movie and a half, where these college teens go to a cabin in the woods for a nice summer vacation break. And then they spot this creepy book in a basement, and they open it up and read the incantations. And then all of a sudden, evil is unleashed. And then it's the main character's job of Ash to fight them and save the day. And it has everything. It's pretty much a parody, campy kind of style of all of those slasher films that you saw in the 80s, and it stays true to all of those tropes.
Okay, so maybe we should talk about the blood.
The way I've been describing the show is it's going to be a bloody good show.
That's true. Yes.
Well, what is the deal with the blood? I understand there's a lot of it.
There's actually a splatter section specifically in the ticketing for audience members that would like to participate and be a little bit more included in the blood spread. So the first few rows will be covered pretty much head to toe, I imagine, by the end of the show. There is all kinds of blood spraying everywhere, on the actors, off the stage, from the stage, onto the audience. It's going to be pretty much blood everywhere. Where you wouldn't expect blood to be, it'll get you before you even know it. So if you don't want blood on you, don't sit in the splatter section. It's kind of a cult following show, similar to Rocky Horror, where this is like something that's a tradition that a lot of places can't do. And the reason why we chose Chemeketa was they were one of the few venues that was okay with us doing it, because it's kind of hard to find a venue be like, hey, is it all right if we like spray gallons of blood throughout your house?
And we're talking stage blood here, not real blood, right? So
yeah, stage blood. Not that kind of cold classic. But
you must have to have, well, one, quite a bit of it, and two, a special formula that makes it easy to clean up after the show and to get the costumes clean and stuff like that for the next performance. Tell us a little bit about that.
So when we first started the show, that was the first topic that came up because Jeremy Club introduced the idea to me and was like, well, I want to do the splatter zone like tradition. And I said, cool, that's going to be a lot of blood. And so I was like, well, we got to go through all the steps. So it spent about 6 months researching all kinds of fake blood ingredients, and then basically sure that what we could do. So I know my browser history looks really weird if you went through it now with all these blood searches, but I've become quite an expert now on blood from looking at everything. So we've now found there's a blood that comes out in just one wash. It's so simple, and it comes like with another detergent that's specifically designed for it, and that's for our clothing for our actors. And then the blood that's being sprayed on the audience is not only easy to remove, it also isn't slippery. It congeals after a certain amount of time, and then it'll just come right off. The other thing is it's hyperallergenic as well, because a lot of bloods contain like cocoa powders and other things. So you have to like make sure that like some of those homemade ingredients, we're not putting that into the air since we're spraying so much blood. So it was quite a process, 6 to 8 months of figuring that out.
So is it vegan or what?
It's not vegan, but I don't know. Well, I don't know. I guess not. It does have glycerin in some of them, most of them, but other than that, it's pretty simple. We have a pre-made concoction that's specifically meant for the blood cannons and for the spraying through sprayers, and it thins up, but it's produced by another company that's a little bigger that actually specializes in medical surgery, like blood, like simulation for operations. It took me a long route to get there, and then finally found it. I was like, this is what they use for that. And then I was like, oh, and then we tested it, and I was like, well, that works great. It sprays great. It lands great, looks great, but doesn't gross me out too much. But
Oh my goodness.
Well, aside from the splatter zone and all of that, what can audiences look forward to, Stacia, especially when it comes to vocal performance? I mean, this is a musical after all.
That's true. We have the great opportunity this time to have me as a vocal director, and we have someone who's a music director. And so when I've done shows in the past, I've been the music director because we've used music tracks. And so we've had singing along to a track, which is kind of like glorified karaoke in a way, I suppose. But all of the instrumentals are there, so you can kind of feel like there's a pit there, like live music. But this time for this show, we have live musicians. And so I am the vocal director, and I'm responsible for how the people sound and the voices, and doing like vocal lessons and trying to make sure that everything sounds good. And then I pass it off to Devin, who is our music director, who's in charge of the pit orchestra. So there's going to be live musicians and a live band performing, which nowadays is pretty rare. And so that makes it special as an audience member to be able to see a live band perform for our actors and singers in the show.
Stacia, what is the makeup of the instrumentation of the pit band?
So it's not a classical musical. It's more contemporary and rock. And so we have a pianist, a guitarist, drum, bass, like all of that kind of rock band kind of stuff. And there's probably to be like a synthesizer or something electronics that kind of can make some of those other sounds that's not in the pit. But it's going to be more rock and roll, rock music heavy.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
What are the vocalists like?
So we have a cast of 9 at the most. It's a very small cast, but we have a lot of big singers. Like our main actor, his name is Jacob Fritz, who plays Ash. Strong vocalist and a beautiful, beautiful singer. And we have just amazing characters, and we have the opportunity to hear the singers and actors sing traditionally, belting all of that beautiful, cool music, but then have the ability to be the demons that are possessed at the end. So they have they're singing as demons, kind of coming together and singing in character. And so
singing as demons.
Yes.
That's a phrase, you don't hear every day.
Only with this show. Only with this one.
Speaking of karaoke, I understand you're going to have a fundraiser October 4th.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about that?
October 4th, we're going to have our fundraiser part 2. The first one that we had was a huge success, and we were able to bring tons of people to come support us, and we raised some money in an effort to kind of have some money to fundraise. And so because it was such a success, we decided to do another one. And so October 4th, we are going to be at the same venue, same place, and you can buy tickets to it on our website, and then all of the money, and then you can go for more fundraising for the show. And so everything that we earn, we're going to take and use it for the show.
So if you go to the website, do the Necronomicon.com, it'll take you there, or you can go to Give Butter /musical karaoke. Yeah, we're starting at 7:30 to 10 with all ages, but after 10 it's 21 and up at the Infinity Room. But all proceeds, will go directly to the show and help support the community for that. Infinity Room's really been a strong supporter for us during this time for our show and everything.
Where is the Infinity Room?
Right over there on Liberty, right across kind of near where Pentacle Theater's office is, just pretty much diagonal from there. 210 Liberty Street.
It sounds like fun.
It's a blast. We have a costume contest as well. And then this time we'll have a special sneak peek at some of our Deadites who are going to be performing in our show. So it'll be a little bit more of a spectacular time for everyone to see a little sneak preview of what the show is about.
And you refer to the cast members as Deadites?
Deadites, that's our demon undead forms of the characters. They become Deadites. Yeah, like Stacia says, once they become Deadites, they are even more of a character. They are singing and dancing, and it's not something to be scared of, but definitely something to have a good laugh with.
Absolutely.
So you've got a cast of Deadites that sing like hell. Are they dancing like hell too?
Oh, yeah. The devil went down to Georgia, so. But yeah, we have some really strong dancers in it. They've been a really stellar cast. In 3 weeks, they've had to learn pretty much all the lines, all the music, all the dancing. And a lot of times with these shows, they try to keep it really minimal, but we decide to actually be like, no, let's do it. If we're going to do it, let's do it big. And so I know the actors probably are hating me for that, but they do really well. And we have some really stellar performers. Our lead, other lead that's playing Cheryl, is just a phenomenal dancer as well as some of our other female leads. And then the guys who are the 2 leads, Scott and Ash, who are being played by Thea and Jacob, they are just hilarious together in their dance and fight. And it's really going to be spectacular for everyone to see.
There's at least one bespoke prop that I'm interested in, and that's the chainsaw. And so are you guys constructing a chainsaw from scratch or adapting something? How is that going to work for Ash?
Danny, our wonderful props designer, actually found the brand from the movie and has reconstructed it to actually spray blood as well as be used in the fights and go onto Ash's little stump of a hand after he cuts it off. So it's really amazing. But the ability that Danny has with the props design and then the weaponry is just incredible. So it's spectacular to see.
Sounds like a even scarier Captain Hook to me.
Definitely.
Way to put it.
Now, and Nate, you're the fight coordinator too.
Correct.
How is that working out?
Oh, it's working great. We actually just finished the largest fight. It's very, very hysterical. It's hilarious and very intense. The biggest part is, when you have that many people involved in a fight, that includes every member of the cast. And you got to know where everybody is at the same
Yes.
time and coordinating where they're going, where they're dying, where they're falling. And with rehearsal spaces, sometimes that's a spacing issue. So you got to keep account for being like, oh, because we're going from rehearsal space, it's like 1/3 of the size of the stage. So when we get to the stage, it'll be much easier. But we're just making sure we're doing it safely, doing it slowly. And then when we get to the space, we'll do a new spacing rehearsal for it. But this entire cast is just phenomenal. And they're pretty much triple threats. So
yeah. Everything involved with the show is just firing on all cylinders. Every single aspect of the show is top notch and the best that I've worked with personally. And it has just been such a joy. And so you guys need to come see the show because we've been working so hard and you will be so impressed.
Stacia, Andy, and Jeremy, we did one show previously all together. This combination has been, I don't know, probably, I want to say it's been 7, at least 9 years, I think, maybe. And since we work together, and we have an all-around wonderful production team. I couldn't ask for better directors, vocal director, co-directors, music director. It's going to be a really, really fantastic show. And the other thing that's going to be neat is we're going to be having the other theaters in the lobby with the ability for them to advertise, so that if people who want to get involved in the local theater can find the theater that's in their local area and be able to be added to their newsletter, to get more information about them. So we're trying to get more of the community involved with these local theaters as well. So this will be a nice little benefit fundraiser too for everyone else.
That's great.
Well, thank you, Stacia Purdy and Nathan Pierce, for joining us here on KMUZ Theatre Talk. The show is Evil Dead the Musical, and it's a fundraiser for the Mid-Valley Theater Network. It runs October 24th through November 3rd at the Chemeketa Community College Theater Auditorium here in Salem. There'll be a special Halloween show. And on our broadcast night, October 4th, there's a fundraiser for the Mid-Valley Theater Network and the show at the Infinity Room in downtown Salem. You can get more information about the karaoke fundraiser and the show itself at dothenecronomicon.com website and Facebook page to learn more about the show. Thanks again, Stacia and Nathan, for joining us here on KMUZ Theatre Talk.
Yes, thank you so much.
And thank you guys for having us.
Yes, thank you both. You've been wonderful.
It's time to wind up today's KMUZ Theatre Talk program. Thank you for joining us. Next Friday at 9 a.m., tune in to KMUZ at 100.7 FM to hear Talking About Art with Joel Zach. KMUZ Theatre Talk is a proud member of the Mid-Valley Theater Network.
KMUZ Theatre Talk comes your way at 9 a.m. the first and third Friday of the month at 100.7 and 88.5 FM on KMWV FM Dallas, 98.3 HD2, streaming worldwide at kmuz.org and on the new KMUZ app for Apple and Android. Or listen to KMUZ Theatre Talk anytime, wherever you get your podcasts.
Ed and I will return October 18th with a brand new KMUZ Theatre Talk program. Meanwhile, go to our KMUZ Theatre Talk Facebook page for news and updates about live theater in the Mid-Willamette Valley.
If you haven't yet joined in to support KMUZ Theatre Talk and the rest of KMUZ's great community radio programs, here's your chance. Next week is KMUZ's Fall Pledge Drive. And although Ann and I will be off next week, you can go to kmuz.org right now, click on the Pledge to Your Favorite Show box, and choose KMUZ Theatre Talk. And thanks for your support. Until next time,
We'll see you in the front row.